This is Tina Douglas, and you're listening to the Liam Photography Podcast with your host, my husband, Liam Douglas. Enjoy!
Welcome back to another episode of the Liam Photography Podcast. We have a pretty diverse collection of photography and imaging stories this week. Polaroid is teaming up with Pokémon for what it calls its biggest collaboration ever. Capture One has delivered some major new features for photographers editing on iPhone and iPad, and NASA has used some impressive orbital photography to confirm a brand new crater on the moon. We're also going to take a look at encouraging news for dedicated camera industry, a fascinating new pocket camera that can literally transform into a flying camera, an interesting project in Michigan where more than 1,300 remote cameras are helping scientists track the state's wolf population. And before we wrap up, I'd also like to tell you about my new Insta360 X6 review and remind everyone about my 100,000 plus subscriber giveaway. So with our first story this week, Polaroid and Pokémon have joined forces to celebrate Pokémon's 30th anniversary. And Polaroid describes this as its biggest collaboration ever. The collection includes 9 limited edition products with 3 Pokémon-themed instant cameras serving as the centerpieces. 2 are based on the compact Polaroid Go Generation 3. The first, and probably the one most people will immediately recognize, is the Pikachu edition. It's finished in Pikachu's bright yellow, has Pokemon graphics and a Pokeball shutter button, and even a wrist strap designed to resemble Pikachu's lightning bolt-shaped tail. There's also Sylveon edition, which uses the Pokemon's pink, white, and blue color scheme. Interestingly, these aren't technically different cameras internally. They're special editions of the regular Go Generation 3, so the differences are primarily cosmetic. They use Polaroid Go instant film with an image area roughly 1.9 by 1.8 inches. The third camera is a Pokeball edition of the large Polaroid Now Generation 3 that gives you the larger traditional Polaroid format using I-type and 600 film, producing an image area of approximately 3.1 by 3.1 inches. Polaroid has also created Pokemon-themed accessories, including a Pokeball camera case, photo album, and camera strap, along with limited edition film packs featuring characters including Snorlax, Gengar, and Charmander. For my take on this, what makes this interesting beyond the Pokemon collectors is the continuing resurgence of analog and instant photography. We have an entire generation that grew up taking essentially unlimited photographs on smartphones. For them, having a physical camera develop in front of you can actually feel new. And Pokémon is a great partner for this because they've got nostalgia coming from both directions. You have people who remember Polaroid photography, people who grew up with Pokémon, and younger customers who are discovering both. For collectors, I wouldn't be surprised if some of these cameras spend considerably more time sitting unopened on shelves than actually shooting film. But that's the way it goes in the world of collectibles, I guess. So, Capture One Mobile 4.0 gets 4 major new features. They've released this new version, bringing 4 heavily requested features to its iPhone and iPad application, which are Enhanced Denoise, Color Balance, Heal Clone, and Keywords. This moves Capture One Mobile another significant step towards providing a desktop-class photography workflow on Apple's mobile devices. The enhanced denoise, photographers can now perform more sophisticated noise reduction directly on an iPhone or iPad. Now that's particularly useful when dealing with high ISO photographs that could make an iPad considerably more capable field editing machine. With the color balance, we have highlights, midtones, and shadows, and it provides separate controls over the color characteristics of each, highlights, midtones, and shadows, so you can get more precise adjustments in each of those. Capture One says this was actually one of the more difficult desktop tools to adapt because its interface didn't translate naturally to a touchscreen. The company therefore had to rethink how the controls worked on a mobile device. The Heal and Clone tool was reportedly the #1 requested feature from Capture One mobile users. You can now remove distracting objects or imperfections from an image directly on the mobile device. For photographers trying to complete an entire workflow without returning to a computer, that's a significant addition. And finally, photographers can now add keywords and organize images from Capture One mobile. Now, that may not sound as exciting as denoising or healing, but for professional photographers managing large libraries, metadata and organization are extremely important. Capture One says its objective isn't necessarily to make the mobile and desktop application identical. Instead, the company wants to bring over the capabilities that make sense for photographers working in the field. Now, I personally think we're getting closer to the point where an iPad genuinely can replace a laptop for a substantial portion of a photographer's workflow. Just imagine shooting on location, transferring or tethering your images directly to an iPad, performing your selects, color correction, noise reduction, retouching, adding metadata, and potentially delivering those images without ever opening a laptop. That's a very different mobile photography workflow than we had just a few short years ago. Next up, NASA photography confirms a SpaceX rocket made a new crater on the moon. Here's the story involving one of the most difficult locations imaginable. NASA has captured images confirming that a discarded SpaceX Falcon 9 upper stage created a new crater on the moon after impacting the lunar surface on August 5th. The first images of the impact area came from South Korea's Donori lunar orbiter. NASA subsequently tasked its Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, or LRO, with photographing the site on August 11th and 12th. And getting these photographs wasn't as simple as pointing a camera at the moon. The LRO is traveling roughly 1 mile per second while orbiting about 60 miles above the lunar surface. NASA engineers had to tilt the spacecraft to point its camera towards the crater during its passes. The timing was incredibly precise. According to the report, releasing the camera shutter only 10 seconds too early would cause the spacecraft to miss the target by approximately 10 miles. NASA estimates that the resulting crater is approximately 6 feet wide and less than 10 feet deep. The rocket stage itself was substantial, nearly 46 feet long and about 8,800 pounds. It had remained in an unstable orbit for more than a year after launching in January 2025 to deliver lunar landers. Eventually, the combined gravitational effects of the Earth, the Moon, and the Sun altered its trajectory enough that it collided with the Moon near the Einstein crater. What I really like about this story is that the photographs aren't merely documenting something that happened. The photographs are the evidence. By photographing the crater under different illumination and viewing conditions, scientists can examine shadows and surface features to estimate its dimensions. It demonstrates just how important imaging technology remains to planetary science, and science as a whole, and I think that's really cool. For our next story, Japan says the digital camera industry is recovering. This is encouraging news for those of us who love dedicated cameras. Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, or METI, says the digital camera industry is showing meaningful signs of recovery. That's particularly significant because Japan remains the center of global camera industry, with companies such as Canon, Nikon, Sony, Fujifilm, OM Systems, Panasonic, and others based in that country. We all know what happened when smartphones arrived. As smartphone adoption exploded, compact camera sales collapsed. Digital camera production had already begun declining around 2008, and as smartphone penetration moved beyond 50%, dedicated camera sales fell dramatically. But something interesting is now happening. The decline is stabilized, and parts of the market are actually growing again. Shipments by Japanese camera manufacturers increased in 2025 for the second consecutive year, marking the first back-to-back annual shipment increases in nearly 2 decades. METI specifically points towards renewed interest in compact cameras, mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras, and one possible reason is younger photographers. METI believes demand from younger generations interested in social media and video creation may be helping to drive the recovery. Now, that's an interesting irony here. Smartphones nearly destroyed the consumer camera business, but smartphones may now be helping create the next generation of dedicated camera buyers. People start taking pictures and making videos with their phones. Some become more serious about it. Eventually, they want better lenses, larger sensors, more control, better ergonomics, or simply a different shooting experience. And then suddenly, they're shopping for a dedicated camera. The camera market probably isn't returning to its enormous pre-smartphone sales numbers, but it doesn't need to. A smaller and healthier market consists of enthusiasts, creators, and professionals can still support a vibrant camera industry. And personally, I think that's great news for photography as a whole. For our fifth story today, this may be the most unusual camera announcement of the week. Hover Air has announced the launch of the Versa, which it calls the world's first flying pocket camera, and people are clearly interested. With 59 days remaining in its Indiegogo campaign, it had already raised more than $230,000 when Petapixel published this story. At first glance, Versa resembles cameras such as the DJI Osmo Pocket or the Insta360 Luna. You've got a handheld body display and a 3-axis gimbal camera. But then things get interesting. You can attach the camera to a special flight kit with 4 propellers, unfold the wings, and turn the handheld camera into an autonomous flying camera capable of tracking you. Essentially, one camera becomes both your handheld gimbal camera and your self-flying follow camera. The camera uses a Type 1/1.3 sensor and has an f2 lens. Its handheld mode, the field of view is approximately equivalent to 19 millimeters on full frame. In flying mode, that widens to roughly 16 millimeter equivalent. It records up to 4K 60p and supports open gate recording using the sensor's 4:3 area. That makes it particularly useful for creators because you can capture once and then crop for 6:9 for YouTube, 9:16 for Instagram Reels or TikTok, or other aspect ratios. It also includes H-Log, HDR, AI subject tracking, and automated flight modes. Hover Air claims an eye-catching 17.5 stops of dynamic range, although that's something I definitely want to see independently tested before drawing a conclusion. The flying configuration can reach approximately 22 miles per hour and fly up to roughly 49 feet above the ground. It's designed more as an automated creator camera than a conventional long-range drone. For pricing, the pricing starts at $449 for pocket only, the gimbal camera, $629 for the Fly More combo, including the flight kit, extra battery, charger, and protective accessories, and $799 for the creator combo, adding items such as ND filters, a case, suction cup mount, and compact tripod. Now, this is exactly the type of experimentation I like seeing in the creator camera market. Instead of asking whether they should build another action camera or another pocket gimbal, Hover Air basically said, hey, why not combine a pocket gimbal with an autonomous drone? For solo creators, travel vloggers, cyclists, hikers, and anyone who normally needs another person behind the camera, this could be extremely interesting. Of course, this is currently an Indiegogo project, so I'd treat the specifications and claims as promises until production hardware gets into independent reviewers' hands. But the concept itself is extremely fascinating. And our final photography story demonstrates that an entirely different use for cameras. Researchers from Michigan State University and the Michigan Department of Natural Resources have used remote cameras to estimate Michigan's wolf population throughout the year for the first time. The project began as a pilot program in 2022 and eventually expanded to an enormous camera network. Researchers deployed 1,311 remote cameras across Michigan's Upper Peninsula. The cameras were generally mounted about 4 to 5 feet above the ground on trees along low-use roads and trails where wolves were likely to travel. And we're talking about a massive amount of imaging data. The camera network produced more than 2 million photographs containing animals, which included white-tailed deer, gray wolves, coyotes, wild turkeys, red foxes, black bears, as well as bobcats. Researchers used machine learning software to identify animals in the photographs and then manually reviewed the results to verify accuracy. The software also automatically removed photographs containing people or vehicles. Scientists then used what's known as space-to-event model to estimate wolf abundance throughout the year. The results showed just how much the population changes seasonally. Estimates ranged from approximately 525 wolves in March 2025 to as many as 1,198 wolves in October of 2024. Importantly, the camera-based estimates closely matched Michigan's traditional winter tracking survey. Both methods estimated just under 800 gray wolves during February and March of 2024. The big advantage is that traditional track surveys work primarily during the winter because researchers need snow to identify wolf tracks. Remote cameras can collect information throughout the entire year. Now, this is another great reminder that cameras aren't only artistic tools, they're scientific instruments as well. And combining thousands of inexpensive remote cameras with machine learning allows researchers to collect and process amounts of wildlife information that would have been extremely labor-intensive to analyze manually. We're effectively seeing computational photography applied to wildlife conservation and population science. And before we wrap up this week's show, I want to remind everyone to stop by my YouTube channel, Liam Photography, because my review of the brand new Insta360 X6 is now available. If you've been wondering what Insta360 has changed with the X6, how it performs in real-world shooting, and whether it's worth upgrading, make sure you check out my full review. And while you're there, don't forget about my 100,000 plus subscriber giveaway. I'm celebrating passing that huge milestone by giving back to the community that helped make it possible. If you want to enter, head over to my YouTube channel and check the description on my recent videos. You'll find the contest entry link there along with the information you need to get your entry submitted. So again, watch my new Insta360 X6 review, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and make sure you get your entry submitted for the 100,000 plus subscriber giveaway. And thank you to everyone who helped the channel cross that incredible milestone. All right, that is going to wrap up this week's episode of the Liam Photography Podcast. This is actually a great collection of stories because they demonstrate just how broad photography has become. We've got instant analog photography finding a new audience through Pokémon. We've got professional desktop editing tools moving onto mobile devices. We've got cameras orbiting the moon documenting the impact of a rocket stage. We've got encouraging evidence that dedicated cameras are finding new customers. We've got a pocket gimbal that can sprout propellers and follow you through the air. And we've got more than 1,000 cameras working together with machine learning to help scientists understand wildlife populations. Different technologies, different purposes, but all revolving around the same fundamental idea: using imaging to capture, understand, and share the world around us. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you subscribe to the Liam Photography Podcast, and don't forget to stop by my YouTube channel for the new Insta360 X6 review and your chance to enter the 100,000 subscriber giveaway. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you again next Thursday.